Hello, my name is Caleb Evans. I am a second year SCADA student at Mitchell Tech. I was assigned the pond and sump pump project. Here are some initial photos I took before I started working. This is the pond pump, its interior door, and the interior of it. This is the sump pump, the interior door of it, and the interior of the panel. I also was given a weather station to configure. And here's the interior of the weather station panel. And here are my after pictures. Here's the pond pump. The major modifications I made to the pond pump was I took the radios out and I added in a new switch and power supply for the switch. The switch required 48 volts DC, which was not currently in the panel, so we added one of those in. And here's the TrendNet switch. We replaced the radios with fiber optic cables to allow faster communications and more reliable communications. And here's the sump pit panel. The only modifications I made here was I took out the radios and I added in a Ethernet cable from the pond panel to the sump panel. And then there's that Ethernet cord right there. And then here's the weather station. I added in a terminal block set at the bottom to allow future users to more easily configure the X320 for their needs more easily. And then here is a picture of my sump pump, and here is a picture of my pond pit where the pumps and sensors are located. And then here is my HMI display that I've made. If I log in real quick, it will take us to the generic landing page that any user lands on. On the landing page, I've just put some generic information that I believe any operator who has a login information for the HMI should be able to see. The water temperature, the sump pit level, the pond level and temperature, and then what the set points are currently set at for the respective ponds. Also the motor statuses, if they're running or off. And for the sump pit, also shows the VFD speed. If we were to go to the sump page, we can see more information. It shows us the hours, the starts, if there's any VFD faults or seal failures. Authorized users can also remotely disable or enable the pump, and they can also remotely drain the sump pit as well. And as well as authorized users can change the set points to whatever they deem is a appropriate set point. You can also go look at the trends. You can see at approximately 12:30 yesterday, the pond was at full capacity. The VFD turned on, the pond drained down to its set point, VFD turned off, and it's slowly been building back up. You can also check if there's any alarms. And we can then go to the pond page and see that it shows you which pump is up next, because there are two pumps and only one of them will run at a time in 1 hour increments. You can also see its hours, its starts, any faults that it has. The same thing for pump 2. the users can enable or disable the pump, and they can remotely drain as well. And over here on the pond information, you can change your set points that you want. This also has a low level lockout, so if the water gets below 40 inches currently, nothing will be able to turn the pumps on. And then down here you can select the float or the probe. And then authorized users can also manually change the pump that will run next. And it'll lock itself out after 5 seconds to prevent unauthorized users from using it as well. You can also see the trend for the pond. It's a lot bigger body of water, so it isn't going up as fast. You can also see any alarms it has. And then from there we can go to the main alarm page. And I simulated a comm loss with the Sump HMI. And then from here we can go to the weather. And we can see all the current weather information. The current temperature, today's high and low, yesterday's high and low, the humidity, currently, today's high and low, yesterday's humidity, high, and yesterday's low. It also shows wind chill if the wind is above 3 miles per hour, and the heat index if the temperature is above 60. It'll start calculating heat index based off of the calculation for it. Over here we can see the wind information. Currently there's no wind, and the last time there was wind it was from the south direction. We can see the rain per hour, the rain in the last day, and the rain in the last week, as well as the dew point, the barometric pressure, and the ground moisture. The ground moisture is currently showing negative because it's not in the ground, it's sitting above air. And then here we can see the trends over currently the last 2 days, but the users could go back as far as they want to. And then from this page you can run to the sump pond, the sump pit, or the pond panel to make adjustments there. And the final thing, or not the final, but the next one is there's a camera situated out there. Currently it's just giving JPEG stills to the HMI. And then the last page we have is the connection page, and it just shows the connection statuses of all the network items. So right now the Sump HMI is showing as no connection because I simulated that fault. And then if we were to go back out and go to the sump pit, if we go back to the sump pit, we can then turn on my camera. We can re-enable the pump. It sees that the pond is above the level, and as the VFD spins up, it'll start pumping the water out. And it's hard to see. I wanted to show off the night vision camera, but it's hard to see. But off by that tree over there, the water is getting ejected into the ditch. And once it gets down to its 25% set point, which we'll turn that up to 40 for now, just so it can turn off quicker. We'll watch it spin down. Once it hits that 40% set point, it drains fairly fast. And it'll still pump out after it hits 40. 40 is just when the VFD starts to spin down. So now that the VFD has turned off, we can go back and we could do the same thing with the pond. So I have the pond page up along with the camera pointed at the pond. If I wanted to, I could re-enable the pump. So if I wanted to remotely drain the pond, I could just hit the remote drain. It's now going to start its process to start draining. There's a delay on the pump start, so we'll be back when that delay is up. So that delay is now up and pump 1 is running, and it's going to slowly start bringing down the level of the pond. It's not going to take effect for a minute. It is a massive pond, but it will slowly start draining it out into the overflow ditch off to the right side. And then up top you can see that pump timer is starting to time up. And if we were to stop that remote drain, it'll start leveling out again for the level. If we come over to the pond alarm page, I added a button to simulate any alarms on the pump. So if we hit that button, you can see that the PLC believes that it's getting alarms for the low level, the pump 2 seal fail, the low level lockout, the pump 2 overtemp, the pump 1 seal, and the high level. If we come back here, we'll see all sorts of alarms flashing. And we can just go ahead and disable that. Come back here, everything's good again. One of the biggest shortcomings of the project I had was I needed to have a panel view 6 HMI, and it was going to be wall mounted in the lab. I had chosen Ignition for my HMI software. I had done some research initially in my project and discovered that you could at one point do the Ignition to Allen Bradley HMIs. I did not know that a update to the Ignition had got rid of that functionality, so I was unable to make the Ignition HMI work on the Allen Bradley HMI.